Right. Or require. Right. That's the thing. Yeah. Let's say you're in a room with a whole bunch of audience members. You tell a joke.
Right.
It falls flat. In that moment, you have many things you could do to turn it into a laugh point.
True.
Right? You hear silence and you'd be like, oh, that was good. And then everyone laughs. Or, so you make some sort of
is this
comment.
mic on? That's
right.
the old one.
Right.
What do you do? Do you have the freedom to choose one of several choices that you had designed from your past, that you prepared to deal with that eventuality? Or is the choice made for you already?
But if he was less experienced, he might not dig out of that hole
Yes.
as effectively or efficiently.
Exactly.
But if you've been in 100 cases where you had a joke bomb,
Right.
you have data on how to pull out of it.
Exactly.
So statistically, you have a chance of getting people
And it
to
happens
smile.
instantaneously. You
Right in
don't
the
even
moment.
realize that it's happening every day.
Some kids need them because they have parents.
No!
I'm just saying.
Very nice. Very nice.
Okay, so Charles, if we're going to exit this conversation,
Yeah.
if we find a point of agreement, it's that this perimeter of ignorance, we recognize inside the perimeter there are forces operating against free will,
Yes.
our physiology, our neurochemistry,
Yes.
and physics,
Yes.
that surely that perimeter may grow,
Yes.
but it's possible that there's a limit to how far it will grow,
Yes.
beyond which we have to admit the existence of free will.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you that.
There
Very nice.
we are.
That's a great job.
It doesn't have to be absolute in one
Right.
direction or another.
It's a bit more fluid. Okay.
And I'm okay
All right.
with that. There is uncertainty in the universe. I embrace it.
I'll tell you this much. I've been married for 20 plus years. I do not have free will.
On that note, Chuck and Charles, thanks for helping us with this explainer.
Awesome.
On the perspectives, let's call it, but emergent perspectives on free will. Neil deGrasse Tyson for StarTalk, yet another explainer in the universe. Keep looking up.
Back. Most people are concerned not about the actions, but the consequences. So what they're thinking about is the punitive response to someone who does something wrong. And is a punitive response a deterrent for somebody doing something wrong or doing something wrong in the future?
Especially if they don't have the free will.
Right.
So there's the other side of this entire analysis is how does society interact with people who are being brought into the circle day by day. We're learning what we have control over and what we don't, biophysiologically, intellectually, emotionally.
Yes.
Why do people need anxiety meds? Do they have the freedom to not
They have
be
children.
anxious?
That is why. That is why I'm telling you, I'm taking them every day, and I got 3 reasons that I take them every day.
Some kids need them because they have parents.
No!
I'm just saying.
Very nice, very nice.
Okay, so Charles, if we're going to exit this conversation,
Yeah.
if we find a point of agreement, it's that this perimeter of ignorance, we recognize inside the perimeter there are forces operating against free will,
Yes.
our physiology, our neurochemistry,
Yes.
and physics,
Yes.
that surely that perimeter may grow.
So if you take it to its logical conclusion, then there is no free will because everything is predetermined by things that
Everything has an antecedent.
whether you know it or not, something is causing it to
Right.
happen.
Something
Right.
precipitated the thing
That's
that
right.
caused the thing
That's
that
right.
made
It's
that
always
happen.
going to happen. But
Right.
there is also stochastic uncertainty in the universe.
My thinking over the recent years, because I didn't used to think about this at all, my thinking over recent years is leaning towards the absence of free will for practically everything we think and do in our lives. And I base that on the fact that over time, things that we have done as people in our species, at one time was you are totally to blame for that, or just something you did or something we've learned, no, this person is more susceptible than you are to addiction.
Right.
There's a biochemistry there. This person cannot just be made the life of the party because they're on the autism spectrum. And the people who cannot shake whatever it is that afflicts them tells me that free will cannot be as free as we think it is. Do you remember the shooter in the University of Texas at Austin?
I remember that one.
Okay?
Yeah.
There's a movie they made out of it called The Tower,
Yeah.
where he left a note saying, I just want to kill people. Something must be wrong with my brain. Please, when I die,
Look into this.
They looked, and there was a tumor putting pressure on a part of in fact, that's how we learn anything about how the brain works when
And
you have
this
situations like this.
Person had the free will to
didn't
write
have the free
a
will.
note. He had the free will to write the note.
But
so he did not have the will to resist shooting. But that's the line that you were talking about is a partial one.
Why isn't that line always in motion as we learn more and more about how the mind works?
It is.
Okay, so then maybe it's a line of convenience today, but tomorrow we're going to find out, oh my gosh, that person has no real free control over their behavior, over their personality, over their tendencies, over their treatment of others.
It's not a line of convenience. It's built in. There's randomness, there's unpredictability.
Chaos.
Yeah, and so you have to ask, I think, if you're a physicist, what level of chaos actually affects you to the extent that you could actually make an instantaneous decision based on other stuff that's not necessarily in your past experiences or what you have just seen in your current environment.
It's in the moment.
So it's in the moment. Right.
Did you have free will to not?
I wasn't really choosing that.
It chose it for you.
It chose it for me.
You have 5 choices, and then your system chooses one of the 5 or whatever,
in that moment.
In that moment, right? And so in that moment, you are not exercising free will. Did you set it up, though, with free will in the past so that you could react this way deterministically, but you actually were in control of the circumstance? So in that moment, that action is not free. But in the setting up of that moment, if it was free enough, does that constitute free will? From a physics perspective, it might not. Then again, from a psychological point of view or from a biological point of view, it might.
Wait, what good are you if you're not landing on one side or the other?
Yeah.
I don't need you to say, it could be this, it could be that. And I'm right both ways.
Yeah.
Whichever the actual answer is, I was right.
Yeah. Well, he's saying, I don't really have the free will to make that determination. I'm going to be right or wrong.
Let's just ask an opinion. In my opinion, I would like to have free will exist in this universe, even though philosophically it can be argued that it does not exist.
Are you happy with a world where you perceive free will even if it isn't?
Maybe.
Ooh.
This has to do with the movie Arrival, right, starring Amy Adams,
Yes.
where if you know how your future is going to turn out, would you like to live your life anyway, right? And the answer is yes, I would. But I still would like to think that the future is not yet predetermined.
No, but know what? It's different. I'm not saying it's predetermined and you know it.
It is true that at some level of resolution that we can observe, causality is absolutely true. Given these initial conditions, this is what will happen afterwards.
That's the physicist in you
That's the
speaking.
physicist in you speaking.
Exactly.
So if you take it to its logical conclusion, then there is no free will because everything is predetermined by things that
Everything has an antecedent. No, but I know what? It's different. I'm not saying it's predetermined and you know it. I'm saying, would you still be happy with life if some alien said, "Look, dude, your life is predetermined. There's nothing you can do about it. Keep on believing you have free will," and then they go back to their planet.
You're a puppet on a string.
A puppet on a string from a free will puppet.
You're a free will puppet on a string.
What I would say in that case is that I would hope that the knowledge that I have that puppet on the string circumstance allows me to circumvent it. I can find a way. If it's fate, right? You've seen so many Greek mythology stories where you try to avoid the fate of whatever the gods have destined
And the act
for
of
you.
avoiding it
The act
makes
of
it
avoiding
makes it happen.
Like Oedipus, for example.
Oedipus
Right.
would be the most
Famous of those.
egregious
Yeah.
example. Yes.
Sorry.
So the bottom line is, yes, I would still be satisfied with trying to do something different because even the illusion of trying to do something different is in itself a form of free will. Physics-wise, though,
It's not.
that's the challenge.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So here's another physical example of that. A football player is trying to sack a quarterback. The quarterback jukes left. The person trying to sack the QB doesn't have enough time to think about whether to move left or right or up or down. It has to react based on years of training and practice and experience.
Wait, what good are you if you're not landing on one side or the other?
Yeah.
I don't need you to say, it could be this, it could be that. And I'm right both ways.
Yeah.
Whichever the actual answer is, I was right.
Yeah.
No, but I know what, it's different. I'm not saying it's predetermined and you know it. I'm saying, would you still be happy with life if some alien said, look, dude, your life is predetermined, there's nothing you can do about it. Keep on believing you have free will. And then they go back to their planet.
You're a puppet on a string.
A puppet on a string from a free will puppet.
You're a free will puppet on a string.
Is that 1% of free will activity that moves us in the right direction, bends us toward compassion, takes the arc of history toward justice.
But but going back to what Neil just said, there are people who actually suffer from personality disorders, that suffer from brain disorders, where they can't do what you just said. They can't express compassion.
Is that 1% of free will activity that moves us in the right direction, bends us toward compassion, takes the arc of history toward justice.
But but going back to what Neil just said, there are people who actually suffer from personality disorders, that suffer from brain disorders, where they can't do what you just said. They can't express compassion. They can't move towards
there was a day when no one even thought to analyze it that way, as a brain disorder.
Yeah, you were just an a-hole.
Yeah, exactly.
That was it.
Now, if they can't, you can. You can show that person compassion or understanding. And therefore, free will as an entity exists.
Charles, you're drawing a line
even if
that I have seen be in constant motion over the decades and over the centuries. That line that you're saying, they don't have free will, but I do. I don't know that I can.
See, I have free will over some things and not over others.
I don't think so. And the more I add up and explore the human condition, I'm forced to conclude that the direction we are headed is that we are all products of an absence of free will. And as a result, society needs more compassion for people who do not otherwise fit in.
See, I have the exact opposite position in my own mind. I feel that it is because of the absence of free will that you see in most behavior, that it is that 1% of free will activity that moves us in the right direction, bends us toward compassion, takes the arc of history toward justice.
But but going back to what Neil just said, there are people who actually suffer from personality disorders, that suffer from brain disorders, where they can't do what you just said. They can't express compassion.